105.9 Academy FM.
The sound of Folkestone.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in. You got wet, did you, coming in?
A little.
A little, yeah. Amazing storm that was, wasn't it? Now, it's moved on from the summer dig, and you're doing a sort of extra one. Why is that?
Okay, well, what we've been doing is we've been trying to understand the extent of the site, the Iron Age and Roman site, which is up on the East Cliff in Folkestone. So the ground around it, of course, was all built on. It's got housing on it from the 19th century onwards. A lot of it, though, quite modern. So what we wanted to do was to do what they call test pitting, which is where you ask householders to allow you basically to dig a small hole in their back garden.
Right.
And that's what we've been doing. We've been doing a few test pits in the areas around the East Cliff, in people's back gardens.
Any opposition?
No opposition.
Brilliant.
A lot of enthusiasm, I'm glad to say. Yeah.
Excellent. And you're also working around St Mary's Primary School as well.
That's right. We've been working with the children there. They've been doing their own test pits because St Mary's playing field sits in that area.
Right.
We haven't found any Roman stuff there yet, but what we have found is some very interesting modern or post-medieval material, which relates to the children's sanatorium.
Oh, yes.
The sanatorium of St Mary Magdalene that was on the site before the school was built, and the children have found things like poison bottles and tiles and all sorts of things.
Yeah, that was knocked down in the late 40s, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, what would they use a poison bottle for? Obviously poison, but why would they be using that in a sanatorium?
Well, of course, many of the children in Folkestone, one of the big illnesses that was treated in Folkestone because of its climate and its position by the sea was tuberculosis.
Oh, I see.
And tuberculosis was an extremely serious condition. It wasn't treatable until after World War II, and people died of it, sadly. And also they were separated from their families because it was considered very contagious.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So it would be some medicine or treatment used with tuberculosis.
Right, so you found sort of bits of Victoriana.
That's right, including a lock with the key still in it, which is somehow, I thought, quite suggestive of the...
And how have the youngsters at the school been involved in this?
Well, they've been involved in all sorts of ways. I mean, we've been going in. Marion Green, who's the education officer at Canterbury Archaeological Trust, who works with us, and Annie Partridge, who's been running the excavation. Annie's on a placement from the British Archaeological Society.
Oh, yeah.
Has been coming in and running the project. So we've been going into schools, talking to the children, but the children have also been able to excavate. They've been doing their own test pits, and they've been doing finds processing.
Excellent.
They've been looking at the finds, washing them, understanding them, recording them, and sorting them.
I bet they love it, don't they?
They do love it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's real history, isn't it? It's not reading about history. You're discovering it.
Absolutely.
It's so much more powerful.
Indeed.
Yeah, and once they've found it and they've washed it, will it eventually be exhibited anywhere?
Well, with all of the finds that we've found in Folkestone over the last 2 or 3 years, our hope is they're all being looked at, they're all being processed, what's called post-excavation work, which is really more than half of archaeology is looking at the finds. And with all of those finds, including the things that we got on the East Cliff, Iron Age and Roman material, we're looking at it all, we're trying to understand it. It's gone off to experts who look at it thoroughly. And in February of next year, we're having an exhibition which is called A Town Unearthed, Footsteps from the Past, and that exhibition is going to be held in the Sassoon Gallery at Folkestone Library. And not all of the exhibits, obviously not all of the finds, because there are a lot of them, boxes and boxes and box loads of them, but many of the finds that are of most interest will be on display at that exhibition.
Why, as a real wide question, why is it important to keep searching for clues of how people used to live?
Well, it's really important that we understand the past and that we understand how, our cultures and our communities come to be as they are. And in the case of Folkestone, it's an extraordinary place with a very, very rich and long history, but its history tends to be associated with the Edwardian and Victorian eras because of its fantastic architecture and so on. But actually that covers up to some extent a much older history. This has been a port, a site of trade and exchange, a site of people coming in and out, of defence. We have 2 large castles here, probably, on Castle Hill and on the Bale. Yeah. We have medieval priories and minsters. It's been absolutely at the heart of English and British history.
Is that because of the geography? It was easier to land here rather than at Dover?
It seems to be that in the pre-Roman period, this Folkestone is the preferred landing spot. Once the Romans land, then they build what they call the new port of Dover, and the emphasis shifts then to Dover as the main, because the water at Dover is deeper, so it's more suitable for boats, Roman boats.
Yeah. So they would have landed in Weir Bay, would they?
It's very likely, yes, they certainly would have landed in Weir Bay, and they would have traded from Weir Bay. Weir Bay seems to be an extensive and a very, very important site of trade and communication with the Roman world and with the continent in the late Iron Age, from around about 300 BC onwards, and possibly before that.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
And what have you learned since the summer dig? What are the conclusions or the sort of progress that you've made since then?
Well, we found we've confirmed our suspicions of the extent of the Roman and Iron Age settlement on the East Cliff. So we've been able to gain increasing evidence about the amount of trade, and also we're beginning to have an understanding of the importance of the quernstone industry. Folkestone sits on an outcrop there is an outcrop of greensand stone at Folkestone near Cop Point, and that, it would seem, has been quarried and has been used to make quernstones, which are large circular stones that were very, very important for grinding flour. Every household needed one in early history, and then later Roman millstones. But Folkestone is the main source of those objects, across the whole of the south of England, and indeed going up into East Anglia and London.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, like you quite rightly say, that Folkestone's history it sort of begins with the Edwardians, but it goes way back, and it's not that we're not conscious of that, are we? Tremendously.
No, and I think we haven't been, and one of the key aims of the A Town Unearthed project was to try and open up that earlier history for the communities of Folkestone, so that people did have a chance to understand. The Roman villa on the East Cliff really exemplifies that. There it is, excavated in 1924. Well, in fact, we now know the excavations on that site began much earlier than that, but excavated by S.E. Winbolt in 1924, and then open as a national attraction. It made national news, and then recovered in 1956, and really lost to memory, lost to sight. So although people who could remember the 1950s and before talked to us about it and remembered it as being open, for younger people, it was lost. They didn't know anything about it.
It was all covered, wasn't it?
It was covered over, yes.
You could go, even when it's raining, you could go and look round. And I mean, who decided that that's it? We'll knock that down and we'll fill in the hole.
Well, it's easy for us to see this as a mistake, but actually, at the time, it was a post-war austerity decision. There wasn't the money to properly conserve the site and to protect it, and in a way, probably they did us a favour, because by covering it up, they have actually, to some extent, conserved it.
Yeah. The other problem that there is on that particular bit of the coast is erosion.
Yes.
Are you losing much of value, do you think?
We're losing a lot of value, yes. I mean, it's quite clear that erosion is a serious threat to that site. we have already lost probably part of the south wing of the building, where the bathhouse was. That's already gone over the edge of the cliff, and we're continuing to lose that Roman and Iron Age site.
Yeah,
year on year, it's just going over the edge of the cliff.
It's very soft earth, isn't it?
It's clay. It's clay and chalk. And you have a process there called rotational slippage, where the water just seeps down and sits and forms a kind of pools, and then large chunks come off. So it's not really erosion from waves; it's more to do with the water building up under the soil.
Oh, fascinating. And is the other test pits still being dug? I mean, can the public come and see any of this work?
No, well, we've now finished our test pitting series.
Yeah.
It's always best to finish archaeology before the winter sets in, if you possibly can. So we've now finished, but we're carrying on the process of finds processing, post-excavation work, researching and understanding what we've found, and now working towards interpretation. We expect that next year, in the spring, early summer of next year, we'll be producing a book, A Town Unearthed, which will be the summary of our findings, and which will open up this fascinating early history from prehistory, from the Mesolithic, from the Middle Stone Age. We know that there were settlements on the East Cliff site in that period, going through up until the 13th century, to the Middle Ages.
Excellent. And we've got this exhibition in the library at the Sassoon Gallery to look forward to in February.
Indeed. Yep.
And do you know exactly when it opens, or is that still being planned?
Yep, it opens on Saturday the 9th of February, and it runs until Sunday the 24th of February, and in that period there will be a family weekend. On the 16th and 17th, we'll have activities and events for families, and there will be a talk. Someone's coming down from the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford to talk to us about Pitt Rivers excavations of Castle Hill. And we're also running a competition for schools and for all young people in Folkestone. It's called Fantasy Folkestone, and it's starting. The competition details will be going out to schools from December, and details will be available on our website in December.
Brilliant. And it's been a bit of a busy Roman day, or sort of history day. There was an event in the library this morning at 10:30. You're doing
That's right.
another talk, a walk actually, around the Bale this afternoon, but it's busy, so you can't actually go join now. But a lot of interest, isn't there?
There's a huge amount of interest. We had a talk last night. Dr Paul Dalton from Canterbury Christchurch University gave a talk on the Anglo-Norman history of the Bale and Castle Hill. I think we had over 60 people, and it's people are fascinated in early history and archaeology.
Well, thank you very much indeed for taking time to talk to us, Dr Lesley Hardy.
Pleasure.
And, hope the walk goes okay this afternoon.
Let's hope we don't get rained on.
No, exactly. And keep us informed of any other events, and certainly come back and tell us about the exhibition in February.
We will do, thank you.
Cheers now.
105.9 Academy FM.
Folkestone's radio station.